Hi, I was interested in repeating over a portion of Torah that I heard from Rabbi Brander on this week's Parshat, Parshas Mishpatim. I've included the links below, right here, and you can see that they are links to Machon Mamre so that you may look up and analyze the psukim that I'll be talking about. One in Parshas Mishpatim, which will be in Parak Chaf Gimel of Shemot, and they're the first 8 psukim. And you can look at the beginning of the psukim in Parshat-Ki Tetze, Parak Chaf Bet, and those will be from Devarim. And so just look at the links below, and you should be on your way. Okay, so the 8 psukim that Rabbi Brander was speaking about are ones that we refer to as Hilchos Dayanim, the laws of judges, or the ones that deal with witnesses, or the friends of witnesses, those who give testimony. Things that we refer to as courthouse proceedings or matters of litigation. And there it cautions us within these 8 to not take bribes and to adhere to proper protocol. Make sure that you listen to the litigants, eat with each present and give a ruling with each present, and don't be intimidated by the majority, and to not be swayed by a liberal bias, like to not favor the poor man, and to stay away from false matters. But then injected right inside Dalet and Hay, Psukim Dalet and Hay, speak of Hashavas Aveda and Prika Uteina, to return a lost object and to unload the burden of a donkey. And specifically, it's talking about your enemy's ox or donkey in each case. It speaks of returning the ox of your enemy or the ox of your donkey who goes astray. And the next pasuk speaks of unloading the burden of your enemy's donkey. These seem to be odd. What do oxes and donkeys have to do with Hilchos Dayanim? And furthermore, we see that in Devarim, Chaf Bet, in Parshat-Ki Tetze, there is a repetition of those laws that we just learned in Psukim Daled and Hay of our Parsha. And it goes even further to include concepts regarding clothing. And the Ramban points this out and says that it's the natural way for the Torah to add on to things. But this is more than adding. This is repeating entirely. So the entire law is described over there in Devarim. So we further want to understand, why would you put it in our portion, and what place does it have in the middle of Hilchot Dayan? Also, I want to ask, why use the example with the subjects being the enemy? Why use enemy? You could have said a Jew or a man. A man's donkey is under a burden, or a Jew's donkey is under a burden. Why specifically say enemy? So Sajid Gaon says very, very simply, if you're going to go to such lengths to help out your enemy, certainly you'll do it for your friend. Certainly you'll do it for a fellow Jew. So we ask, who's this enemy? Who's this enemy that we're helping out? So in a Gemara in Pesachim, deals with the idea that there are Jews you're allowed to hate. Shocking, I know. You can hate someone who is doing immoral actions. Tosfos jumps in and says, so what are we learning here from these psukim? We're learning that even though you're allowed to hate him, it won't be for your benefit. The Torah is really protecting you, because you who hate him, it will be noticed by the enemy that you hate him. He will see you and he will hate you. He is not allowed to hate you. So now, caused him to sin. Additionally, once that happens and you see that he hates you, you will hate him. And anytime that happens, there can be a reflexive, explosive reaction. And you could come to hurt him. You were walking by, you weren't even going to think of hurting him. His donkey was under burden. He felt distressed because he lost his object or his animal. And all of a sudden, through this whole reflexive process, you could come to hurt him. The Torah's looking out for you. Hashem's looking out for us. And we see this. We see that one of our forefathers, Yaakov Avinu, Parshas Vayishlach takes precautions. He takes a mindful step towards appeasing his brother Esav, and he wants to help him out. And at the end, that enemy who wants to kill him, ends up kissing him. One of the most beautiful unions. And if we want to analyze even further, there's Mechilta that speaks of who is this enemy. This enemy could be a regular Jew. But you're not allowed to hate a Jew. You're right, you're not allowed to. And sometimes Jews mess up, and we hate each other. We don't mean to. We shouldn't. But it happens. So in that moment when you hate him, the Torah is telling you maybe you should go help him in this matter, in returning his object or unloading his donkey. Or it could be a convert. They say that it could be referred to a convert who returned to his old ways. Or it could refer to someone who hits your child. Nobody likes that guy. Or it could refer to someone who you're just in a temporary dispute with. And in the moment of that dispute, you hate him. You hate him. But even in that moment, such an opportunity comes along, overcome that, and get on it. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about overcoming that, and this is not something Rabbi Brander brought up, but maybe you're not overcoming something that is outside of you, rather inside of you, and that thing inside of you could have been enumerated through the example of that the pasuk used, because it used an example of an ox and a donkey going astray, and in Kabbalah the ox represents passion, and the donkey represents a certain type of steadfast resolve, but it can get to a point where you're just it gets to laziness. You're just so just going with it. You're just following. You're just hauling. You're hauling. You're doing what a donkey does. So we shouldn't have our passions get out of control. The Gemara speaks about an ox that gores. It shouldn't become that. It shouldn't become wild. It should be tamed passion. And this, similarly with a donkey, don't allow it to take you down the road of laziness. Don't become lazy. Watch yourself. You should be able to carry heavy burdens, but not to the point where it's going to break you and you're going to need somebody. It says right there that you should unburden, should unload the burden from your enemy. If that enemy is you, so unburden yourself. Take the time and deal with it. We all have difficult tasks and challenges that we're getting through, but don't let it be so much that it breaks you. Torah is very cautious of that. There's a beautiful idea by Eliyahu Kitov that these concepts are speaking about external things and internal things. The external things have to do with bribes coming your way or the masses guiding you in a certain direction. But then there are internal things. The internal pressures of bias that occur. There's a natural response to want to turn away from your enemy. And here the Torah is saying, don't do that. Don't follow your bias. Don't turn away from your enemy. Look after your enemy. Which essentially, at the end of the day, is going to be looking after yourself. Makes you into the most godly person, the most godly entity in the universe. There's a Gemara in Bava Metzia that deals with loading and unloading. Two mitzvot come upon you. You've got the opportunity to load, help out your friend, or to unload the burden from your friend's donkey. In that case, it says that the unloading wins out. Why? Because by helping out the friend with unloading, you're not only helping out a fellow Jew, a person, you're helping out the animal as well. But then the Gemara gives a second example, and it talks about if your friend is unloading, but your enemy is loading. In this case, it says that the enemy who has to load up wins out. And that's because to us, it's a greater thing when you're able to do something that we refer to as Kove Shal Yitzro, that you're able to conquer your inclination, or you're able to Lachof et Yitzro, or kafit hayetzer, to be able to really subjugate that inner desire, of yours. That is how you become godly. And the Hebrew way of saying that is to become Elohim. And Elohim refers to judges. You want to become a judge, you want to become God-like, you want to become Elohim, this is what you do. This is how you act. When you act like this, you're godly. And to step back, to just analyze and look at these psukim, Rabbi Brander pointed out that what you're noticing that we're dealing with Mishpatim. That's the name of the parsha. All of these are Mishpatim that we've been talking about, and embedded inside of them are concepts of tzedakah or of chesed. And he's trying to address, can mishpat and tzedakah really exist? Can you have a gevuradic state of mind and a chassidic state of mind? And can they really be together? Do they clash? Can they be together? Do they clash? So, does this have to do with judges? Not necessarily. This could be talking to every single individual. That's the duality of the Torah. That's the intricate web, the way that it was made, that it can really be talking about two things at once. And so we see here, and the message that he wanted to leave us with was that when you settle and you resolve these other aspects, these concepts of internal struggles, and you act with judgment on them, you act with mishpat, you act with din on them, then you will be who you were once an enemy, maybe an enemy to yourself. You were once an enemy. You will be the beneficiary of tzedakah. You will be the beneficiary of chesed. You will have a little bit of a grace of heaven. You will have a friend come along and unburden you, return something to you, to feel complete, to feel whole, to help yourself, to help those around you. Have a good Shabbos.